wordpress.com, back for another week's live stream. And tonight's topic I'm really excited about because I think that it's going to be helpful to a lot of people. And this topic, my cat is over there making all kinds of noise. Anyway, tonight's topic was actually requested, and I didn't turn. Hold on one second. Requested, and I didn't turn. I do this all the time. I do this all the time. Yeah, you would think that one of these times I would remember to turn down the volume on my laptop when it's right next to me, but I never do. Anyway, tonight's topic was actually chosen by somebody who was in one of the other chats for one of my other live streams. So I don't remember who it was, but somebody specifically asked, since we had talked about homeschooling and ADHD that week, they asked if we could possibly at some point talk about homeschooling strong-willed children. Hi, how are you? I'm so glad to see you back again. So, I have got to say that I think that homeschooling kids with ADHD, hi Vicki, and homeschooling strong-willed children, there are a lot of similarities. Not everything is exactly the same, but I think that a lot of the tips that I use, hi homeschool mama of 11, a fellow homeschool mama of 11, I think that a lot of the tips or a lot of the hacks, I call them hacks, that I've learned is that, they're things that are actually going to go really well with ADHD kids as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting some of your input into this too, because, this is just one of those things that it can a lot of times make or break a homeschool when you have a strong-willed child. If you do not have the resilience that you really need in order to be able to do that, because, a lot of times you can start to feel like this just isn't going to work. There's no way that you can do it. And so that's why it's so important that we all come together and share with one another what we have learned through our experiences together. So, I'm actually going to get started right away. Actually, hold on. Let me just, I'm going to actually read some of the comments first, because what I've noticed is that some people show up a couple minutes late and then they miss the beginning of what I talked about in the live stream. So I will go over the comments first, and then I'll get started on the few talking points that I have for today. But I've got to say that I'm really going to leave a lot of time open for you all to give your experiences with this too, or if you have any advice on this. So anyway, Alyssa said, hello, this video is what I've been needing. Yay, I'm so glad. I hope that it helps you. Joe finally made it. So happy to see you. Holistic homeschooling, you made it too. I'm so glad. Rebecca, that's us. Yeah, we've got a couple like that too. Let's see. Made it, not a good start. That's okay. I do that all the time. Hi, Jess. And Rachel Ray said, do you by chance have a video on homeschooling a child with dyslexia? I actually do not, because so far, none of my kids have dyslexia. So I don't really have much experience with that. Jessica from Chicago. Wow. First time finally being able to catch this live. I'm so excited to learn from you. I'm so happy to have you here. I have a passionate child here too. Yes, I like that word, passionate, rather than strong-willed. But you know what? I think that a lot of times we tend to look down on kids being strong-willed. But, it really does have a lot of good things in it, in that they are not going to be the types of kids that take things like sitting back. They are going to be the types of kids who question things and look into things more. And that really is something that we're trying to instill in all of our kids as we're homeschooling them, right? So anyway, yeah, I like I talked about the other week, I do have one definitely with ADHD, a few that I suspect do. And at this point, honestly, really have one strong-willed child who actually turns out to be my youngest, the youngest of 11 kids. It's so funny. I said she's like the grand finale. She is not bad by any means, but she knows what she wants. She knows what she wants to do and what she does not want to do, how she wants to do it. And thankfully, I have gone through this with some of my older kids. Some of my older kids I've had they still at times have strong wills, but I've noticed that, and I'm going to talk about this later on, in the live stream, is that having a routine set up every single day has really helped my kids to get used to just knowing what they have to do. And it has really helped them overcome just fighting and pushing back all the time. So anyway, let me just read some more real quick. Alyssa said, I first found you through your ADHD video, and ever since I've been addicted to watching your videos. You're the most helpful channel I've found for our needs. I'm so glad to be able to help you. That is what I'm here for, honestly. Hi, Heidi. And Holistic Homeschooling, look up Sarah. Oh, are those dyslexia resources? That is awesome. And I do have to say, I did not do a video on homeschooling dyslexia, but my kids were using Nessie Reading, or was it called Nessie Reading and Spelling? Nessie Learning. It's just Nessy, Nessie.com. That actually is geared towards kids with dyslexia. It's not only for kids with dyslexia, but they do specialize in kids with dyslexia. So that is actually a great resource, an online resource, if you wanted to look into that. And actually, you know what? I'm going to put that in the chat, because that way you won't forget that it's there. So Nessie.com, that's what it's called, Rachel, if you wanted to check into that. So anyway, let's get started on some of our favorite tips for homeschooling strong-willed kids. And again, this is something that I've just, I've learned it through experience, and I'm by no means an expert, but with kids, I found, what kind of works and what doesn't. So the very first thing that I want you to think about when you are having difficulty homeschooling your strong-willed or passionate child is consider their age. A lot of times I think that we are attributing strong-willed character traits to really young kids, because a lot of times we're just honestly expecting too much of them at too young of an age. Because, and I talk about this all the time, as a society, we're like pushing education on kids at younger and younger ages, and they are just mentally not ready for that. Now, yes, there are some kids who are advanced and do well with that. But, most kids at that point, at early ages, they don't really have what they need to be able to sit down and do paperwork, paper after paper, worksheet after worksheet, for even a few hours a day. It's just not good for them. So that is the first thing that I really want you to think about when you are considering your strong-willed child is it just because you are expecting too much of them because of their age? Are you kind of following more of what society thinks that kids should be doing at that age and not listening to your child themselves? So that was actually my first tip, and I'm going to check the comments quickly just to see if any of you have anything to say along those lines right now. The biggest struggle I have with my ADD son is distractions, or better phrase, getting him to focus on something he doesn't have a passion for. Yes, that is definitely something that it can be tricky. And I'll be talking about this later, but one of the best things that I found with kids with ADD or ADHD is keeping lessons. She'll be getting into that, because I think that really works well with strong-willed kids too. And a lot of times, kids with ADHD are very often very strong-willed too. A lot of times that does seem to go together. Let's see. The next tip that I have is to give your kids choices. Do you give your kids choices in their homeschool day? And by saying giving them choices, that could mean something as big as, letting them help you pick out the curriculum, or letting them help you decide what your homeschool day is going to look like. Or it can be something as small as just saying to them, do you want to do your phonics first, or do you want to do your math first, or your spelling? You pick. And that's what I've found really, really helps with my 5-year-old. I just have to put my water on the floor. My cat just had her face in it. Bella, you're so bad. No, I don't have a drink. Anyway, every week, my cats, they're such menaces, but I love them. Anyway, So yes, that is something, like a lot of times my 5-year-old, I don't give her a whole lot of seat work, and I do have to say that right away. And the main reason that even give her seat work is because she wants to be part of the homeschool. Like, she wants to do what all of her siblings are doing. So, but one thing that she really likes is when I will say to her, and I don't do it just with her, I actually do this with all of my kids, certain things throughout the day that they do pretty much on their own, I will say to them, what would you like to do first? So it's not like I say, you have to do math first, followed by you must do spelling, followed by you must do your phonics, and it has to be that order every day. Sometimes kids like to change things up. Sometimes they are they're just not in the mood for something. They might be really excited about doing one sort of activity. Another thing that I've actually really found is that it's best to try to alternate activities between when they will be doing a lot of writing and when they will be doing more reading. Because you know what? Their hands start to hurt after a while. Do you remember that when you were in school? Like when you would be writing, and your hand would start cramping up and you would get like those little calluses on your fingers. And thankfully, my kids do not do even close to the amount of writing that I did when I was in school. But they still do get to those points where their hand hurts, and they just need a break. They need to be able to do something else for a while. So a lot of times what looks like they're fighting back and they're being strong-willed is that they're just not articulating that at that time they need a little bit of a break, and that they would probably be better off doing something else. So that's why I think it's so important to just ask your kids, ask them what it is that they would like to do next. I think that is something that really, really helps. Let's see. I'm just going to read some more comments right now. Rachel Ray, short lessons definitely work best for us. Yes, us too. Choices, yes, I let my almost 6-year-old choose the order of her lessons, and that has helped. It does, because it gives them ownership of what they're doing. Rebecca says, people always say don't give them a choice. Well, that's one way to get them to dig their heels in. We all have choices. They're not robots. Amen. Yes, absolutely. Diane said, I get burnout with my strong-willed child. Do you ever get burnout? What do you do? Yes. Yes, I do. And when and that is actually one of the things that are you talking just homeschooling or life in general? Because if you're talking homeschooling, I think that's one of the things that has really helped with us is that we do the Sabbath homeschool schedule. We do 6 weeks of school and then we take a 1-week break. And then we take 6 weeks off for Christmas and for summer vacation. And that's one thing that really helps me to not have burnout. Ariana, can you please get Bella off the table? She keeps shaking it. That's one thing that I found that really helps me to avoid burnout is that I always know that 1-week break is coming. I always know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel for those times when it is just like, and you don't know what to do. Now, other times, if you feel like you are burnout right then and there and you need to do something, by all means, that is actually one of the points that I had made today. So I'll talk about that now. It's don't be afraid to change things up. If you find that you are just getting to the end of your rope, don't be afraid to just postpone your plans for the day and put a movie on. Or you could have a game day. Or you could go to the park, go for a walk, maybe go out for a nature study. And that is one thing that I found that really, really helps. And especially with kids who are strong-willed, sometimes they just really need to also have that break in their routine because they get set in their ways a lot of times. And sometimes this can be like a welcome relief to them to help them with that. So yeah, just don't be afraid to just get a break. Also, I would say is that a lot of times, I will just give the kids something quiet to do. Hopefully they will do it, something that they enjoy. And then I just do something that you enjoy, sit and read. Go for a walk by yourself, or, just even pop something on the TV that you really like. That's one thing that I do when I get stressed out, is I kind of veg out in front of the TV. And the funny thing about that is that, like, the thing that I veg out in front of the TV on, honestly, is The Legend of Frosty. A cartoon, yes, but that is just something that for some reason it just calms my nerves when I put on The Legend of Frosty, and they just took that off of Netflix. I was so upset. I actually tweeted Netflix, and I was like, you took off The Legend of Frosty? But we did find it on YouTube, so hopefully that doesn't get taken down. Anyway, let's see. Children are persons too. They appreciate being given choices. No one likes a very controlled life. Yes, absolutely. Cry. Well, you know what? Sometimes you have to. That's fine. That is absolutely fine. Everybody, well, okay, maybe I can't say everybody. I can't speak for everybody, but I would say that most people do reach a breaking point at sometimes, and sometimes that's honestly what you need to do. Yeah, the Sabbath school week schedule, it is a really cool idea. I actually did a video on it a couple weeks ago explaining, like, really how I planned that, and I actually showed, like, on a calendar how I plan out that year, because it still equals up. My cat is back. It still equals up to 36 weeks a year, because in Pennsylvania we have to homeschool for 180 days a year. So that actually still does equal up to 36 weeks a year. Let's see. Rebecca said being strong-willed can come from a learning disability. They don't want to do something they don't understand. Yes, that is absolutely true. And I think that that's something where it really has to come into, like, being in tune with your kids, really being able to pick things up with them, and really teaching them, to vocalize those things when they're having a difficulty understanding something. And, you made a really good point. And that is something that I think that we really have to be gentle about asking the kids. Are you having a hard time understanding this? Sometimes what ends up actually happening is, I actually went through this with my 7-year-old. She's 7 now, but back when she was 5, I started doing Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons with her. And it was even when she turned 6. She fought it tooth and nail, would not do it for me at all. And so instead of, like, fighting with her to get her to do it, I did what I talked about at the beginning here. Was I just considered her age, and I realized that maybe she just wasn't ready for that. And so I took a step back and I took a break from it, and I gave her time maybe to grow into that development, because, kids develop at different times. I know that, like, at the doctor's office and, at schools, and even, like, sometimes, like, our health insurance company sends us, like, papers on, like, developmental milestones and stuff like that. And a lot of these charts and everything, they act as if all kids should be exactly the same, and that's just not the case. It's not true. And I think that a lot of times we are expecting things that they're just not ready for. At the same time, if you're realizing that your kids are not hitting that milestone at all, even after giving them, an adequate amount of time, you have to be able to be, to know when it is that maybe you should have your child evaluated. But again, I think it's so important that we do have to first take into account that all kids are different. They're all going to learn at different times. But if you see that your child is really, really far behind in doing something, then it is time to get them evaluated. Let's see. I'm just going to go see what they have. It's a merry life. I am trying your Sabbath homeschool schedule. It was a last-minute decision right before our school year started. After listening to one of your videos at the end of week 4, we are ready for a break. We're having our 1-week break next week, and I just said to one of my kids today, I was like, I am so ready for our break next week, because this week and last week have just been crazy. If we have not had, like, doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, we've just had other stuff going on all the time, constantly. It's just like constantly stuff has been happening. And I think that we'll probably only get, like, 2 typical days of school in this week. All the other days are going to kind of be, like, I don't know, tweaked, because of various things that we have to do. So I'm just looking forward to next week when I can just take the time to maybe just like gather myself back up again and just take a deep breath. Christmas any day. Yeah, it is. It is here. Random question. What are your thoughts on kids? This fly is after me again. What are your thoughts on kids playing Minecraft? My 6-year-old is obsessed, so I allowed her to play for an hour once she has finished school. My 12-year-old is sitting over there. She heard me say that, and she's like, my kids love Minecraft. My kids, their tech time is actually on the weekends. They're allowed to do it Friday after school, Saturday, and then Sunday after church. So I don't let them go on their technology during the week, like Monday through Thursday, just because we used to do that, and I noticed that it had completely taken over their lives, and they were not getting along at all. And I also noticed that it was really starting to have an effect on their actual work while we were, doing our activities and everything. I just noticed that their attention span was not what it had been. So that is something that we do limit. But yes, kids really do learn so much from Minecraft. My 8-year-old was like talking about smelting the other day, and it's just amazing the stuff that they pick up while they're there. Let's see. Alyssa said, I love how you express ideas that can totally change the game for homeschooling. A lot of us try to be like the school, but we homeschool so we don't have to be like the school. Yeah, and I did the same thing. I did that for 2 years, and that was like really, really bad for us. So bad to the point that we burned out. I sent the kids back to school for 2 years, and at first, after I sent my kids back to school, at first I was like, oh, peace and quiet again. Oh, I can clean my house. That literally lasted like a week or two. And after like just a couple weeks, I was already like, I miss my kids. And my kids were coming home fighting all the time. And I was getting completely overwhelmed with all the schoolwork. So yeah, when I took them back out again, I was determined not to make the same mistake of trying to recreate school at home again, because I saw that it had not worked for us. And if you think about it, why would your kids out of school if you're just going to try to do the exact same thing with them at home? You took your kids out of school for a reason. So that is something that I do tell new homeschoolers all the time, is definitely read as much as you can, not just of homeschooling books, but education books. Like I would point someone to a John Holt book before I would point them to like an actual homeschooling book, because I think that it is so important that we understand how kids learn before we actually start taking or deciding on what kind of homeschooling methods we're going to use, which of course you want to incorporate how your kids learn, and you want to incorporate things that you are going to enjoy and things that you are going to be able to take well. But at the same time, knowing how kids learn really does help you to embrace so many things, so many ways that they're taking things in that you might not otherwise notice. Let's see. Angelica said, I often ask my kids for feedback and we'll make changes, but then we'll stick with our routine, or they will negotiate their way out of things. Right. So do you mean that after you get feedback that you do make the changes and then you stick with the changes, or do you go back to your old routine? Let's see. Oh yeah, holistic homeschooling said about Thinking Tree and fun schooling. I would love to try fun schooling books sometimes. It's just at this point I haven't been able to because I have so many kids. It would just be not in our price range right now. Holistic homeschooling said, promise I am not sponsored. Ariana, can you get Bella off the table again? She keeps jumping on the table and shaking it. And London, would you possibly be able to get me some more water? Bella drank out of it. Okay, thank you. It's nice having kids down here when I do this. Your audio is so clear. What are you using? My phone. Honestly, it's just a Samsung. Is this a Galaxy?
I think so.
I don't even know what kind it is. I think it's a Samsung Galaxy.
S7.
Samsung
Edge?
Galaxy S7 Edge?
Something like that.
Yeah, so my daughter said it is. I think that's what it is. I often wonder if sometimes it sounds too hollow, but I'm not high tech like that. I'm just using my phone. Let's see. Oh, you forgot it was Thursday night. Well, I'm glad to see you here barefoot in the country. Rebecca said, we have too many breaks and not enough work. I need a schedule, but of course plans don't always work out. Things come up. That's right. Life happens, and we just have to, learn how to accept it and try to figure out ways that we're going to help it to, you know, educate our kids, help them to learn from life. But yeah, you really do also need to have that routine in there. Like, you can't have stuff happening all the time. So that's why I always say, like, our schedule and our routine is kind of like the foundation of our homeschool, but it's not something that is set in stone. Because I realize now, after, my failures before, I realize now that things are going to come up, but you do need to try to at least, especially back to the topic of strong-willed kids, you especially do need to develop a routine with strong-willed kids. And that is actually something that I really noticed helped with my strong-willed kids, and even with my daughter now, who my 5-year-old, when they get used to doing something every single day, it just becomes a part of their life and they accept it. And again, the routine isn't something that you have to have everything completely planned out minute by minute, but just so that you have kind of a rhythm throughout your day, so that what is going to happen. Like my kids know that, in the morning there's breakfast, then we straighten up together, then we do Bible together, then the middles do their schoolwork, then the littles do their schoolwork. And it's kind of like we just have this little flow to our day. And I think that it really, really helps. And kids, strong-willed kids and kids with ADHD, they really, really do need that routine. They need that bit of normalcy that is going to help them to know what comes next in life and in their homeschool. So let me see. Barefoot in the Country. I was reading Harry Potter out loud for our nightly reading. We love that series. Heather said, you're so right about technology. I notice it with my kids too. Yeah, it's a shame, because I know that there's such a debate about it. Some people say technology without limits is fine because it's beneficial, and that, kids can learn from screens. And then you have people on the other end saying absolutely no technology at all should be allowed. Like, kids shouldn't ever be in front of screens at all. And I think that I just had to find a middle ground, because I definitely saw that, like Minecraft, my kids were learning stuff from Minecraft. And, even like other games, they're learning how to spell. They're typing things in, like little things that, I don't know, like if they need like some kind of tool or something, they'll type it in. My younger kids, who maybe haven't even really learned to spell that yet, but they're learning how to spell from these games. But again, you just have to know where to set the limit. If you see a change in your kids that is for the worse, and if you see that it's coinciding with the amount of time that they're spending on the technology, I think that you really need to take a step back and look at that and think, is there something that we should be changing about this? And I've definitely noticed that their attention spans are much better when they are not on their phones all the time. I've definitely noticed that. And actually, I did read something about somebody who was like, I don't know if he helped to develop Facebook or what, but like back at the beginning of Facebook, and he said that he knows, and they know at Facebook, that it actually rewires your brain, the way that your brain works. It's kind of scary if you think about it. So yeah, definitely limits for us. Stan Kids Stankovic, my first year and they do not want to work. Did you ever go through a deschooling period with your kids? Like, were they in school before and you took them out? Because you might need to go through a deschooling period where they just get used to being at home and being with their mom, to do their learning. So deschooling is really, really important if you are just coming out of a school situation with your kids. Yeah, Barefoot in the Country said that you would miss and be sad if your kids weren't home. And you know what? That's how I was after a while. And I would be like that now. Like, honestly, when I hear someone who is homeschooling say that they're putting their kids back in school, I honestly just get like a pit in my stomach, because it takes me back to that time of what I went through. And honestly, like, that was a dark time for me. I never want to go through that again. And I do have to say, honestly, that so far, everyone that I know who has homeschooled and then sent their kids back to school, everyone that I know has pulled their kids back out again so far. So, anyway, Heather K said, I'm so envious of you having the flexibility to homeschool or public school them. Yeah, I would never put my kids in public school again after what, no, I just could never do that again. Let's see. Oh, you made the changes. Did they work for you, Angelica, when you made those changes with your kids? Oh, it doesn't sound hollow. Good, because I'm always afraid that it does. Oh, we have the same phone? It's a good phone. It used to be my husband's, and then he got one of the new iPhones, so then I just got his phone. And I'm like, that's okay. It has a good camera, so I'm fine with that. Let's see. Joe said, knowing how kids learn, how important those words are. Kids learn without any effort from us. They really do. Yes, absolutely. And I say that all the time. Like, we constantly think as homeschooling parents that we have to like learning on our kids, when the fact is that the learning that is really going to take hold of our children is the learning that they find themselves. That's why one of these days I'm going to have to actually look up the John Holt quote, because this is the second time now that I'm talking about it, and I don't know exactly what he said, but what he basically said is that, you know, we need to stop trying to give our kids an education and let them take one for themselves. And yeah, I've worked so many of his philosophies into our homeschool. And, you know, I honestly still love unschooling at heart. Honestly, even now, I'm reading the unschooling handbook again, just because I love the whole unschooling philosophy. But I talked about this last week. A good fit for us having so many kids, because we needed that routine. And we just couldn't find a routine that worked with unschooling. So our homeschool days take like 2-3 hours, and that's it. So, and that's for, you know, as many kids as I have. So it's working for us so far. Let's see. Yeah, I know. You're talking about landscape. I tried. I'm talking to It's Mary Life. She said, wish you could present landscape though, not a criticism, just a statement. I know, it won't let me. I tried it I think the first and second live stream that I did. And for some reason, my phone will not flip to live stream for YouTube. I don't know why. If I ever get a laptop that has like a webcam on it, then I'll be able to do it from there. But at this point, my laptop does not have a camera, doesn't have a webcam. And I don't know what it is with my phone. I cannot get it to flip to live stream. I've tried it like so many times, and I just can't get it to work. So if anyone has any technical expertise on that, I would love to hear it, because I can't figure it out. Rebecca said, we want to know what to expect, including the kids and their schedule. And, you know, that's something that is really something that you have to work out together with your kids. I don't know, how many kids do you have, Rebecca? This may be off topic. Have you done hot dots with your children before? I have actually never heard of that. It's a Mary Life said, I think balance is important in every area of life, and electronics and technology are no different. Yes, you're absolutely right. All things in moderation, right? Well, okay, I won't say all things, but most things in moderation. Rebecca said, my kids' boys don't handle video games well. Yeah, you know what? Some kids don't. Someone was just telling me that their neighbor's son, like when he comes home from school, he just literally doesn't leave his basement. He's down there playing games all the time and refuses to come out, like to go anywhere with his parents or anything. So yeah, I know that some kids are really great at self-moderation, you know, when it comes to video games, and other kids like really have a hard time knowing when is enough. Let's see. Alyssa said, the Endless Alphabet app has helped my 2-year-old tremendously, so worth the $9 a month, but too much technology can definitely be too much when it comes to their attention span. Yes. Diane said, yes, my strong-willed child loves a routine. It's hard for me to do that, but I know she loves it. What would you recommend to motivate a flexible mom? How old is your child, Diane, I'm talking to? And then Barefoot in the Country said, I think there's no cookie cutter answer with technology. The individual is the variable that makes it different, not just per family, but also per kid. Yes, absolutely. Yes. Homeschool Mama of 11 said, my boys that are behind in reading are doing better since I let them play Teacher Monster to read. They think it's just a fun game, but just in a week, their reading has greatly improved. Yes, that I have not used Teach Your Monster to read, but I found that with Reading Eggs and Nessie too. Stan Kid Stankovic said, I have not deschooled. You definitely need to look into deschooling, because that is like a really crucial aspect of making the transition from public school to homeschooling, is deschooling. And if you want to check on my channel, I actually have a deschooling playlist. So that might actually help you if you want to check that out then. And it will tell you, basically, it'll explain to you, if you don't know what deschooling is, it'll explain what it is, and the types of things to expect when it happens, how to do it, and how long, which that varies. Everything with homeschooling, just like with technology, is just, again, yeah, it goes down to the individual families. But yes, check out my deschooling playlist. That might be able to help you. Glenda said, I read Dumbing Us Down by John Gatto. Thanks for recommending it. So very true about our school system. Thankful that I am able to homeschool for our 8th grade daughter. Love your videos. You're welcome. And thank you. Yes, Dumbing Us Down is such an amazing book. Rachel Ray said, I overheard my daughter sounding out words to type into the Minecraft search tool. Yes, which is a huge deal for dyslexia. I never saw the value in it until then. Yes, I know. Isn't that amazing? Hi, Dawn. I'm so glad to see you here. Kat is back up on the table again. It's a Merry Life said, I'll research on Google and see if I can discover something. If yes, I'll leave a message somehow. What kind of phone was it again? It's a Samsung S7 Edge. Is that what it is, Dylan? He doesn't know. He knows. Is it a Samsung S7 Edge? Yeah, he said he thinks it is. Okay. Let's see. Mrs. Thabeau, did I say that right? I don't know how to say your name. After you quoted that last week, it completely changed me. On Monday, we started child-led education. So scary for a scheduled freak like me, but so empowering for my boys. Yes, amen. That's so exciting. Because, again, your kids are going to learn more from their own interests, things that they happen to come across on their own, than anything that you push on them. And I personally like to do things with my kids because my darn cat. You know that movie, That Darn Cat? That is literally my cat. Anyway, London, can you please get Bella off the table again? Anyway, what was I saying? Let me just check again. Oh, okay. Yeah, I do like to do some things with my kids just because I'm thinking that maybe I'm introducing them to things that they might not otherwise have ever come across. But, honestly, I think that they would eventually, if it's something that's important, they would come across it anyway. So, let's see. Okay, Rebecca said 2 boys at home and a senior in public high school. Okay. I would just at least start trying to maybe start having like a morning routine, just as I actually, right before I went on this live stream, I was afraid that I wasn't going to make it on time. I just got done recording a video of the routine of our homeschool routine for eight kids. I broke it down like what we do throughout our day, and it's not a vlog. It was just me saying exactly what we do. So finding a routine is something that has to work with your family, but with us, it's kind of just like, we straighten up in the morning, same time every day, 9:30 straighten up. Then at 10 o'clock, we start our homeschool day, and then 12:30 is lunch, and then 1 o'clock is chores, and just having some sort of expectation so that they know what comes next, so that they're not kind of just wandering aimlessly, wondering what should I be doing now. So that's something, but again, it's something that you really have to find that works with your lifestyle. You missed the beginning of the live stream. I know, I'm sorry, but you know what? I'll be on it for a while yet. I'd say another 20 minutes yet. I usually am on here for like an hour. I'm hoping my phone holds up because since I just recorded that video right before I did this, I did not get to charge my phone, so it was only at like 60-something%. And my phone, it loses its charge so quickly. Anyway, Dahlia's Roses, finally catching you live. I'm happy to have you here. Okay, Diane, your child is 6 years old, almost 7. At that age, I personally just pretty much stick with the 3 R's most of the time. You want to get the foundations of learning in at that point. So for me at the age of 6, it's just like phonics and math, and maybe doing like a read aloud with them, because at the age of 6 and almost 7, they are still learning so much through play. And I think it's so important that you don't try to load like 4 hours worth of work on them, because that's not really what they're going to learn from in the long run. So just get those foundations started. Phonics, maybe, I don't know if your child is reading yet, but maybe if they're not, maybe try teach your child to read in 100 easy lessons. I actually really love that. And then math. And I would really go for a lot of self-directed learning. If you really want to do, have a little bit more structure in your day, one thing that I'm doing with my littles is Beautiful Feet books around the world with picture books. And we absolutely love that. It's literature-based learning. So I just like read a book to the kids, and then we'll discuss it. And then sometimes they might watch like a 2-minute video about an animal. And it's just all very gentle learning, and it's not something that takes hours upon hours. Our Beautiful Feet books lessons are literally like 15 minutes, which is another thing. I know I feel like I'm going off track, and I'm going to read the rest of these in a minute because I want to go back to the strong-willed child thing. So we've talked about considering their age. Dawn, that was actually the first thing with strong-willed kids. I'll just recap real quick. I was saying that it's so important that you consider your child's age. You know, are you expecting too much for a child your kid's age? Because, you know, you have to remember that your kids don't have to match, you know, what everyone else out there in the world is doing. And, you know, schools have their own timelines and everything because they have to keep everyone together, because they've just got to kind of like move them all along at the same time. But kids don't, you know, they don't normally all grow and develop at exactly the same time. So you have to ask yourself, am I expecting too much from my child at this point in time? Do we really maybe just need to take a step back, and do I need to let my child follow their own timeline? Because sometimes that's what actually causes the strong-willed traits, is that they're frustrated because too much is being expected of them. The second thing that I talked about, Dawn, was giving them choices. You know, just letting them say, hey, you know, do you want to do spelling first or math first? Sometimes something as small as that, you know, it's giving them ownership. It's letting them know that they have a say in what they're doing. Sometimes something as small as that will help a strong-willed child. Keeping lessons short. This is something that I talked about with ADHD kids, and this is something that it would definitely also help with strong-willed children, is just keeping those lessons short. Because if you draw the lessons out like way too long, you know, like change a 10-minute lesson to like a 45-minute one, that is when you're going to start lose any child, let alone a strong-willed child. As soon as you see that your child is starting to lose interest, your best bet is to move on to something else, because they're not going to retain it anyway. So try to keep your lessons short, and that is, I guarantee it's going to make it much more peaceful in your household. And I also had talked about, don't be afraid to change things up. You know, like if you're having like a really bad day, don't be afraid to just push everything aside and pop a movie in, or go to the park, you know, go for a picnic. Just do something that is just, you know, like a breath of fresh air, something different for you to do. And then the fifth one was what we were just talking about, developing a routine. Routines are so, so important to I think all kids in general, but especially to kids who have like ADHD or who have the tendency to be passionate, as someone had pointed out earlier. So that's something that now how structured you make that routine is entirely up to you. With a strong-willed child, I would really try not to do it like with time constraints. Like, don't say, okay, you have to do this from 9:45 to 10:15, and this has to be from 10:15 to 11 o'clock. I might not go that far, but I might just, you know, try to get some sort of routine going in your day. So, and I was saying this earlier, so that they just know what's coming next, you know. And I think that really, it gives them a sense of just, you know, kind of feeling safe, you know, having just knowing where they're at in their day. I only have one more, which I'll just go over in a minute. Let me just check. I know that I missed some comments here. So Nane said hello from the Philippines. So glad to have you here. It's our first year of homeschooling, and you are one of the few bloggers that I follow for all things homeschooling. Thank you so much. I am so glad that you are finding my stuff helpful. Angelica said, yes, we change our routine up once or twice a month as their abilities change. But once they give me the feedback and we make a change, we agree that's the new routine. I have ages 9, 3, and infant. That's a good idea. Do you know you just have to learn to follow your kids' needs? And also don't forget you need to put your needs in there as well. So I think a lot of times we parents forget to do that. Let's see. And Barefoot in the Country said, yes, mine prefer to know the schedule. I just lost it. Okay, especially my strong-willed one, but among all the other life lessons, I'm trying to get them to see, also understand the freedom of just living. Yeah, amen. I completely agree. Oh, okay, it's pronounced Tebow. Okay, sorry. I am like so terrible with names. Okay. Deborah Barrow said, Hot Dots is amazing for my kids. Self-checking answers immediately and no arguing about if mom knows the answer. Well, I can see how that would work well with some kids. I honestly never heard of that. Okay, Allie's Bookish Life said, I love unschooling. When my son is having a really hard week, I know it's time to do a few days of unschooling. Yeah, last Friday we just had an unschooling day. Dawn Wade said second year homeschool, and she was in public school up to 4th grade. Doesn't enjoy learning and hard to get her to do school. Yeah, I've seen that happens a lot with when you are just coming out of school. And I know it's been the second year, but a lot of deschoolers will tell you to deschool. I think it's 1 month for every year that they were in school for, which honestly, if your kid was in school for, up until 9th grade, you might not feel comfortable deschooling for 9 months. But anyway, yeah, did you deschool, Dawn, just out of curiosity? Dawn pulled out due to severe anxiety and started cyber, had to pull from cyber because she's behind in some core subjects. Okay. And you know what? Honestly, I think I just love the flexibility that homeschooling has. Barefoot in the Country said, my kids wake up and want to tackle school and get it done so they can move on with their day. I'm happy about it, except it's still woven with the thought of school being a dreaded task or chore. Yeah, I get that. But, I do have to say that my kids, I was talking about actually, it was my other video. I'm getting them confused now. But my kids, they do math and spelling and cursive and everything. And so when I have it written down on the whiteboard, it's written to be done after our unit study lessons. But a lot of times what happens is my kids will be doing it first thing in the morning. They'll be asking me to write down what we're going to do for school. And we don't start school until say 10 o'clock. And at 8:30, they're already starting some of their schoolwork, which is fine with me. And they don't complain about it. They just set about doing what they have to do because they know that way they have more time to just, do whatever it is that they had planned for the day. Let me see. Dawn said she has generalized anxiety. We've asked school for help, but it was never given to her. I'm so sorry about that. She's 10. Rebecca said, my 5th grader won't read books. He only wants to be read to. I know he reads all day, just not books. For the time being, I would just say read to him. And have you tried all different kinds of books with him? I know a lot of kids that age like to read graphic novels, comic books. I think it's important. Did you ever actually take him to the library maybe and just say you can pick out any book at all that you want, and don't just expect say chapter books of him or certain types of books. Literally let him look at everything, because even if he goes and gets say a Dr. Seuss book, he's still reading. So have you ever done that? Dahlia's Rosa said, I just received the Beautiful Feet book in the mail. It looks like so much fun with so many good books. I love it. I absolutely love it. Kevin and Leah Branch said, I'm so happy to have found you. I really appreciate having someone who homeschools like we do to listen to. I feel so alone so much of the time with using a relaxed approach. Me too. It is so hard finding, even here, I've so far maybe come across one other family who homeschools similarly to us. Everyone else is just very, very structured, and I have never met an unschooler in real life. Let's see. Allie's Bookish Life said, my son loves having a say in what he's doing next. I use that option every single day. Yes, that's exactly what we do too. Let's see. Dawn Way said her anxiety keeps her from wanting to do most things in public. She feels sick to her stomach. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about that. Do you know what caused, like what it stemmed from? I mean, you don't have to say anything, obviously, because we're in a chat. But anyway, let me just read. I'll just read some of the stuff and just see if there's any questions for me. Oh, Dahlia's Roses, you got Around the World with Picture Books Part 1 and 2. I only have Part 1 so far. So you're going to have to let me know how Part 2 is then, because I definitely want to get that when we're done with Part 1. Part 1 is taking me a bit of time to do just because we only do Beautiful Feet books with them twice a week. I think usually you do it 4 times a week with them. Bella. My cat is driving me crazy. Okay. Laquita Margarita said, so I decided to homeschool because my daughter kept getting sick and the school kept sending her home without her coat. But what if she gets behind? I actually have, you know what? Let me go. I have the perfect video for that for you. I actually talked about that. I think it's called What If My Child is Below Grade Level or something like that. And I think that might be a great encouragement to you, because since you just started homeschooling, I know that you're probably still in the mindset of like doing everything like school does, and that the kids all have to do things at the same time that school kids do. And that's just not how it is with homeschooling. Homeschooling really allows your kids to develop at a pace that works best for them. So just because your kids aren't doing something at a time that other kids their age in school are doing them, it does not necessarily mean that your kids are behind. Unless if someday you plan on putting your child back in school. If that's the case, then you might want to try to keep them like learning basically the same things. But if you are planning on doing this, long term, I would definitely say to, I'm just trying to find it. I would definitely say to just let your child grow at their own pace. Let them learn at their own pace. And again, just like I told someone else, if you just pulled your daughter out of school, you definitely want to look into deschooling. And if you don't know what deschooling is, I have a playlist here on my channel if you want to check that out, and that will explain deschooling to you a little bit. Okay, so I'm getting the link for What If My Homeschooled Child is Below Grade Level right now. And then I'm going to put that in the chat for you, because I think that might actually help you. My computer is so slow, and I just did a disk cleanup yesterday and it's still so slow. Okay, so here is the link for What If My Homeschooled Child is Below Grade Level. So there's that. Let's see. Dahlia's Roses. My teen wants to try the Beautiful Feet course for ancient history. Yes, I know, that looks so good. Sherry, well, I'm glad to see you here though. Let me see. Do you ever run out of ideas on what to do after school? I feel like we finish school so quickly. It's pretty much TV time that's left because I'm exhausted and pregnant and toddler is napping. Honestly, I don't run out of ideas on what to do after school. And the main reason for that is because after school, my kids are on their own. They have to find things that are going to keep them entertained. So that's one thing that they know. I know that a lot of people, a lot of moms will just be giving their kids activities and stuff to do all day long. But for me, I think it's so important that kids need to know how to entertain themselves. So that is, after school, my kids, and it's amazing the stuff that they come up with. Today my kids were writing pages and pages of stories, and I heard them reading them to each other. And then they were drawing pictures, and paper dolls are huge in our house. My kids will be making Play-Doh. They were out front on the front porch, drawing with chalk, or they'll go out back, and ride the little go-kart. And literally, if your kids just get used to the fact that they need to find something to do, after a while that they're going to start doing it. Because my kids were like that at first. At first it was always like, I'm bored. But once I started saying to them, well, if you're bored, I have, some chores that you could do around the house. Well, then that stopped really quickly. Okay. Okay, actually, so before I read the rest of the comments there, because it's getting pretty late and I didn't even get to the last one, is the number 6 is discipline your strong-willed child when necessary. You know, we have been and by disciplining them, I don't necessarily mean like spanking them or anything like that. What I mean is that we talked about some reasons that kids might have for being strong-willed, you know, like if they're not understanding something so they don't really want to do it, or if they are just not ready for that developmentally yet, or maybe if your lessons are taking long, or if they're just plain not interested. There might be reasons like that. But you know, you also have to realize that there are times that your kids, whether they're strong-willed or not, are going to refuse to do their work just out of disobedience. And so what I do with my kids when they do that is I will just say to them, okay, well, you can do that now, but I'm just going to let you know that you can't do this, and I'll say something that they were planning on doing later until you have that work done. And that's another reason that I think it's so important to stay in tune with your kids, is to know when there is an issue, you know, for why they're acting out, or when they are just doing it just because they're being disobedient. And so that is another thing that I think is really important, is if they're doing it just kind of like to push you a little bit, you need to put your foot down, and you just need to say to them sometimes, all right, you know what, but you do need to do this. So if you want to go over to your friend's house tonight, you don't have to finish this right now, but you do have to get it done before you go there, or you're not going to go. And I think that we have to come, it has to come to that sometimes. You know, I think that a lot of times what I have seen is that so many people, they are afraid to just put their foot down with their kids anymore. And you need to do that, because kids need to know where their boundaries are. And you as the parent, you know what's best for them. So I know, and discipline is like such a touchy subject with people, but you have to not be afraid to tell your child yes or no to something, especially if they are not listening to you simply because they want to be difficult. You know, you have to be able to come up with some sort of effective method for getting them to do their work, you know, when they're doing it just for that reason, just because they want to push your buttons. So anyway, let me see, what do you have here? Let me see. Dawn Wade said, everyone tells me to get out of the public school mindset. That's hard. Yes, and you know what, Dawn? That's really what deschooling is all about. I constantly find myself researching to see where she should be, what she needs. Oh, yeah. That's where you're having problems. I did a video about that too. I literally feel like I did a video about everything. But I did another one before where I was basically talking about, you know, those books that are like what your fourth grader needs to know, what your or everything your kindergartner needs to know. Well, I think what a lot of people do is they take books like that and they treat them like Bibles, and they literally think that their kids have to be doing every single thing in those books. And honestly, I would say if you find yourself doing those sorts of things, don't read those books at all. Dawn, I'm telling you, read John Holt. Read John Taylor Gatto. Even read Teaching from Rest by Sarah Mackenzie. And that's a homeschooling book. But that is actually, that's a really, really good one. She has a lot of the same philosophies that I do, and a lot of the philosophies that I've learned from John Holt and John Taylor Gatto. And again, just because they're my philosophies doesn't mean that they have to be yours. But definitely, don't keep yourself in that school box. Don't even look at books like that anymore, unless you plan on putting your kids back into school. Otherwise, just don't even look at them. Get rid of them. Get some John Holt. Learning All the Time. That is the best book that I ever read when it came to describing how kids learn, is Learning All the Time by John Holt. So if you want to read and you want to research, Learning All the Time by John Holt. Get some by John Taylor Gatto. But that actually doesn't, well, he does talk about how kids learn there. Yeah, so you could actually talk about you could read Weapons of Mass Instruction by John Taylor Gatto. But again, John Holt is really the one who he was amazing at just watching kids, observing them and seeing how they pick things up. So learning all the time, how children learn. Teach Your Own, the John Holt book of homeschooling. That's another great one. So, yeah, I would try to stay away from those books and don't research that stuff. um let's see. We are very below grade level with my one son. They kept pushing him to the next grade with his IEP, even though he was not ready. The learning gap keeps growing for him. Yeah, I would, again, Rebecca, if you are planning on staying like in the homeschool, the video link that I put up there above, it says, what if my homeschooled child is below grade level? You might benefit from watching that too. Yeah, and It's Mary Life is right. It doesn't happen overnight, getting out of that school mindset. Literally, it took me years. I know it took me years to get past that. I knew that I wanted to do it, but I kept finding myself going back to it again. And even now, like even as passionate as I am about not staying in the school box, I still find myself from time to time falling right back into that trap again. But now it's much easier for me to dig myself out of it than it used to be. Let me see. My cat's back. Dawn Wade, it just scares me for her future. And all I can say to you is don't be scared, because think about it. Honestly think about it. What do you remember from when you were in school? Other than knowing how to read and basic math and things like that, maybe even up to algebra, what do you really remember from school? Do you really remember all of those historical dates that they made you memorize? Do you really remember all of those like scientific hypotheses and everything that they taught to you? The truth is that most of what we learn in school, we will never use in real life. The best thing that you can do for your kids is to let them learn from life. Let them be beside you and see how the real world works. See things in context. See things as they really are, because the things that they're going to see in those textbooks, honestly, are not going to impact anything in the real world. Honestly, I would say not 100% of it, but I would say a good 90 to 95% of what they learn in schools. It's not ever going to matter in the long run. Let me see. Just trying to read through some of these yet. Yes, hold them accountable for their actions. You're right. You are so welcome, Diane. I'm so glad that I'm able to help you. Because I've been through it. I have been through the whole thing of sending my kids back. And so that's I think why I'm so passionate about this, because I've been there, done that, and I'm trying to help people to not have to go through that, what I did. I know some people will, but I'm hoping to at least help some people to not do that. Anyway, let me see. Yeah, homeschool mama of 11. I'm relearning every day with my kids. Me too. I know more now from homeschooling my kids than I ever learned in school, ever. Yes, Barefoot in the Country is right. John Holt books don't just tell you about how kids learn, but he gives very full descriptions of exactly how he's seen it work. Yes, it will really flip a switch about kids and discovery. Yes, and we are conditioned. You're right. It's Mary Life said, thank you, Shelley, for saying that. What do you really remember from school? This goes through my head daily, especially when I ask questions about things I've taught and they can't answer any questions. I was helping my 16-year-old with math yesterday, and she was like, Mom, she was like, what am I ever going to, it was algebraic equations with absolute values. And she was like, Mom, when am I ever going to need this in life? And I said, you're not going to need it. She said, then why am I learning this? I said, well, if you want to go to college, you're going to need to do it then. I said, but I'm going to tell you the truth. You're never going to use this in life. So, because I know that she's not going to go into any career that needs like any sorts of higher maths or anything. So I was just straightforward with her about it, a lot of times kids in school would ask that same question to their teachers, and their teachers would try to come up with some answer, especially math, like algebra or trig or something. But the fact is that the vast majority of people do not need higher maths in life. So I just came out and told her. Let's see. And yes, Vicky said, this is why I'm less concerned with math above algebra and geometry and more concerned with real life math. Yes, I completely agree with that. Alyssa Shirley, all the repetition and conditioning, and the main things we took away from it was reading, basic math, and writing. Yeah, and you learn those in the early years of school. Waste of time, and then you come out. Yes. And you have to learn to do your taxes and real life skills that you were never taught in school. Exactly. Don't get me started on college. Rebecca said that. I have a feeling that we're probably very similar if your comment means what I think it means. So anyway, Madeline said, I'll be glad to get to that point when my son is seeking out learning. We've only been deschooling for a week and a half. Oh yeah, it takes time. But anyway, it is past 11 o'clock here in Pennsylvania. So I think that I am going to leave for the night, especially because I'm surprised that my phone actually lasted this long. But I am so, so happy for all of you who came to chat with me today. And I just love, 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 love having these conversations with all of you. So if any of you have any ideas for any future live streams, you can leave one in the chat, or if the chat turns off eventually, you can just leave one in the comments. And this was really fun. Thank you, Vicky. I'm so glad that you were here. And I just wanted to say goodnight to all of you, and I hope to see some of you back again next week. Thank you so much. I am so grateful for you guys too. You all have a good night.